Hey guys, how you doing? It's Henry at Mowers and Blowers again. This is episode 6 of my Briggs & Stratton 21 horsepower, 46 cubic inch opposed twin engine that I have been trying to rebuild for like a week. The reason why I'm so confused is because this is the first 46 cubic inch opposed twin that I'm ever rebuilding. I've rebuilt 3 other opposed twins, but they were all 42s. Why does it differ so differently that it's giving me such a rough time? It's because of the connecting rods. The 46 cubic inch connecting rods are not straight. They're slightly curved at an angle here, right? And because of that, it's difficult to understand which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom, which way the piston is supposed to be turned, which way the connecting rod is supposed to be oriented, right? There are relief points on the cap. There are oil holes that should be pointed towards the camshaft. The opposing one should be facing away from the camshaft. The piston notch should be pointed towards the flywheel, which is up, right? All these things needed to be done, and I didn't do them, which is why I currently have everything together here, right? But when you turn this crankshaft, the top connecting rod hits the camshaft. The bottom connecting rod, one of the cap bolts, hit the engine block. So then I want to give a shout out to Wallace Gardner. He's a relatively new commenter, but he comments on a regular basis now. The 2 connecting rods that I had, the 46s, as you know, one is slightly damaged, but I think because the journals are fine, it should be okay. You know, I'm just going to try it, you know what I mean? As you guys know, I'm not going to spend $130 on new connecting rods, so I'm just going to use what I have. If anything, it's a learning experience for me, right? Okay, so, and I got another good one, perfectly good one, from my bag of bins in the back. Somebody told me that I should take, Hesser 6 told me that I should take inventory of exactly what I have. Believe it or not, in my shed, I have everything that I know which bin is, what's in what bin. And I knew that I had a bin of opposed twin parts, but I just didn't know, I didn't remember exactly what I had in it. So it's good for me to take inventory of what I have. And now we're complete. Now I know that bin has that stuff. You know, what's also interesting is this. In the back shed, I also have this crankshaft. But looking at the numbers, 511 and 5, this is a 42 inch, so I couldn't use this anyway. Another big problem I have is that I was wondering why it rubs. Well, guess what? This is actually a 42 inch connecting rod. So you really can't use this because even though with the naked eye, they look identical, right? But there's a reason why this is a 42 inch and the other one's a 46. It's got to have differences in it that will prevent this from working. So I have to remove this crankshaft, right? Take it out. And I've been busy with this connecting rod here. I probably sanded this down for about an hour. This is the 46 cubic inch one. Why I know that is that this says 511 and 6. The 511 and 5 is the 42. The 511 and 6 is the 46. If this video does anything, at least it tells you that. So that those guys out there who are trying to do the same thing that I'm doing, rebuilding an opposed twin, and the differences between a 42 and a 46 cubic inch components, this is it. If it says 511 and 6, this is a 46 cubic inch crankshaft. The 511 and 5 is the 42. I currently have the 511 and 5 in here, which it shouldn't be in here, because this is a 46 block. It's got a 46 cam. It's got 46 connecting rods, 46 pistons. So everything in here is 46 cubic inches, with the exception of this crankshaft, which is a 42. I think my problem is I got to put this 46 in there, and I've gone through hell smoothing this out, and I think I have it. I mean, I think it's very smooth and in great condition. So, unfortunately, I have to take this all apart, probably for the 6th time. Look, it's a pain in the butt. It's taken me a long time. But I've got encouragement from my subscribers. As you know from a couple of episodes ago, I was about to launch all this stuff off a bridge or something. Fortunately, I'm not near any major bridges. But, in reality, I would never throw this stuff away, because all this stuff, money! Opposed twin parts are very expensive on eBay. And if I just took all this stuff and listed it on eBay, I'd probably get $200-300 for all this stuff, you know? Just to let you know another thing. Right, the shout out from for Wallace Gardner. So I was looking at the 2 connecting rods. One said 1A, one said 2A. And honestly, to the naked eye, it looked kind of different, but I don't think they are. 1A means piston number 1. Piston number 1, if you're looking at it from the seat, you're sitting on the tractor, the engine is on the tractor, the carburetor and intake manifold's pointed forward, right? The one on the left, the head, that's cylinder number 1. The one on the right is cylinder number 2. And that's another problem. I think I have 1A, it's on the right, not the left. Cylinder number 1, I think I have the connecting rod on the bottom here. Well, if it is on the bottom, then I do have it right. But either way, I'll have to rip this all apart again and put it in correctly with the 46 cubic inch crankshaft in here. The biggest problem here is this camshaft. I probably spent an hour trying to shove this camshaft in here, in between the tappets, under tension. Reason why I don't want to take out the compression spring in the caps is because it is hard to get it in there. So I don't want to use the compression tool, which I do have, to compress the springs and take off the cap so that the tappets are loose. Because it's just so much trouble, you know what I mean? I think if I just wiggle it around, I'll get it in there somehow, but it's going to be a pain, a real pain. It'll take me forever. But you know what? Thank you very much for all the encouragement of Henry not trying to give up, you know, because that's just the way my channel has been. I'm persistent, I'm determined, and if I want to do something, I'm going to just do it. I'm not under any timeline. I just do it because this is what I do, you know? So I'm going to give today one final shot. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to strip it all for parts. And I'll make a good penny from the parts too. If I'm successful in this, guess what? I actually have enough parts to build another engine. Because I have a 42 sump and a 42 engine block in the back. And I've got 42 rods. I've got 42 pistons. I've got everything pretty much to make another opposed twin engine. I think I might need an oil slinger and some other air filter parts, you know, but I think I can do it. Anyway, I'm going to put you on time lapse, and I'm going to take this part again, replace its crankshaft. It's going to be a long time because that camshaft is going to be a pain in the balls. It's still a cold day, and as you can see, I've got my electric heater going. Why? Because yesterday I was taking so long on this project that I ran out of kerosene. And while I can put diesel in here, or home heating oil, I don't think I'm going to go through the trouble of doing that. I might just go to Home Depot and buy some kerosene. Or maybe I could order it online or something. But honestly, this didn't last as long as I'd like it to last. I can recall probably I've used it maybe 5 or 6 times, each about an hour or two, whereas maybe 2 or 3 times I might have used it for 4 or 5 hours. So that's like 10, 3 times 9, 10, I don't know, like maybe 30 hours per gallon. And costs about $12 for a gallon of kerosene. So $12 for 30 hours worth of heat. Is that worth it? Hey, look, if you're cold, I guess it's worth it, right? But empty. So I think this takes a gallon of kerosene. But it's a pretty good heater. Heats it up pretty well. As you guys saw, I reassembled piston number 1 and it went in perfectly, and I rotated it several times, 720 degrees, and it didn't hit anything, and it was smooth and everything. So then I inserted piston number 2, which is the bottom one. Okay, and yes, this is the damaged one, slightly damaged, but the journal's still good, so I decided to put it in anyway. I have really no choice, you know what I mean? But so the oil hole is here, or it's in there somewhere, and it says in the book that it's supposed to be pointed opposite of the camshaft, which is what I did. The 46 connecting rods are such where the cap can only go in one way. Unlike the 42 ones, right? You could be confused, and it could, because it's straight, you can put them both ways. But for the 46 one, it makes it easy because you can only, the cap can only go on the connecting rod one way. So this is what I have. As you can see here, I'm going to rotate it. Look at that. The bolt of the cap hits this wall. Not even close. There's no way that could clear, right? Now look at this. Now look over there at the very bottom. Okay, watch. That. See that bolt? That bolt is hitting the cam. What the hell, right? So piston number 2 is just wrong. I just don't understand why. See that? That hits the cam. So at this point I can't figure it out. I don't know why. So the only choice I have is to remove that piston number 2 once again. Take the connecting rod off the piston, flip it the other direction, which is the only other alternative, right? And then reinstall it again and see if it works. Finally, guys. After 6 episodes, almost a week, I've probably taken these damn rods out of here a dozen times. But finally, I got the combination right. They're both torqued down, not to specs because I don't have a torque wrench that's so small that you can get it in there. So I just tightened it as hard as I can without breaking my knuckles, you know? Of course, I'm still worried about the damaged connecting rod here, but like I said, the inner journal is fine. It's just the outer structure of it. So, I flipped it around. Both notches on each piston is pointed upwards towards the flywheel as such. I followed the initial instructions of the Briggs & Stratton service manual, even though the one that I was looking at was not exactly the same as this one. It was a different model. But it told me that my oil hole should be pointed outwards. Well, that was obviously wrong because I flipped it back together again and I have both oil holes pointed towards the camshaft. In the manual it said that the piston number 1's oil hole should be pointed towards the camshaft, which I have it done. And I did this on the opposite. It said it should be opposite. Well, it's not opposite. Both oil holes should be pointed towards the camshaft. So I flipped it around, took the piston off the connecting rod again, flipped it the other direction. Like I said, the caps on the 46 connecting rods can only go one way, so you can't mess it up. And here we go. Look at this. Finally, I have never been able to turn this completely, rotating the crankshaft freely with it not hitting anything. You know what I'm saying? So I've got success here, man. I am super stoked. Super stoked. I've got 4 tappets in there. I've got the camshaft in there. I've got both connecting rods and pistons and the rings all spaced out from the gaps in a triangular Mercedes-Benz way so that there should be no oil leakage through the gaps. Everything has been greased and the use of assembly lube, semi-synthetic, from my friends over at Lucas Oil Products. I've also oiled the cylinder walls, all the joints, oil seal, crankshaft seal, and now it turns freely I mean, that's great, man. So now I get to move on to the next step. How about that? Catch me outside. How about that? Yeah, that's tight, man. I honestly was this close to giving up. You guys know that. You see the frustration in my face? How I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. But then, you know, sleeping on it, I'm like, that's tight. Sleeping on it, I'm like, well, I mean, I need engines, right? And right now, I've got 2 opposed twin engines that I could actually put together. So I got 2 engines out of nowhere. You know what I mean? That would be awesome. Not to mention they're opposed twins, you know? And that's the only reason why, is because they're opposed twin engines. If it was any other engine, I probably would have given up. But if you guys know anything about opposed twins, they're really a great, great treasure to have. Now I get to move on to the next step. Some brake cleaner for my friends over at Lucas Oil. Spray some on here. I'm going to put a thin coat of RTV silicone because I have a .20 gasket for the sump, and it's a very thin gasket, super thin. I've used it before and it seems to work, even though I personally feel like it's just too thin. But that's the reason why I'm going to put a little bit, just a very thin coat of the RTV gasket maker on the surface of the engine block. Put the gasket on, and then put a small light bead on the sump itself, sump surface, so that there is at least another thin layer of flexible gasket, if you will. So this is to clean the greasiness off the surface. Here's the sump. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna. I've inspected the sump. The 5/16 screw is on here tight. The oil slinger is on here tight. I'm going to dribble some Earl onto the gears. The Earl I have in here is 10W30. It's just like a universal weight. I'm going to Earl the governor gear. Layer in between that plate. Layer. Some brake cleaner. Get rid of the greasiness off the surface of the sump surface. Once I have the bead on here, I'm going to dribble some, actually maybe I should do that now so I don't contaminate it. Now I got the surfaces nice and clean. I'm going to dribble some Earl in the area here. And more importantly, the crankshaft seal. Just going to put some on the crankshaft. you guys think I was ever reach this this point of putting on the sump? I just hope I remembered I do everything, because I have been known to forget to put stuff in. Like last time I put an engine together and I'm like, why do I have these two tappets sitting here? I forgot to put the tappets in. This is such that you know it's in there because it was so tough to get the camshaft in there, you know? So, okay. I'm gonna put that RTV on there now. Just a slight little bead. You know, very thin coat. As you guys saw via time lapse, I know it only seemed like a minute or two, but honestly it was more like an hour. You know what I mean? That's how time lapse goes. But
Henry, I gotta go. I'll see you next time on Mowers and Blowers.
Hey guys, support my channel, buy a sticker. Also follow me on Instagram at Mowers Blowers. Check out my website, mowersblowers.com. See you guys on the next one. Have a great day.
See you guys next time on Mowers and Blowers.